You'll never find love at your age. The words echoed in Claire's mind, cutting deeper than the whispers of the guests at the ball. She was 40, single, and had long ago accepted the fact that society's expectations were nothing more than empty promises. As she stood there, alone in a corner of the grand ballroom, she could feel the eyes of others on her, some filled with pity, others with judgment. The dance floor swirled with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the heaviness in her chest. Claire had never cared much for the judgments of others, but tonight, it felt different. She felt the weight of years spent hiding behind her own walls. She had once dreamed of love, true love, but those dreams faded with each passing year, replaced by reality. She had a successful career, a home, and a life she was proud of, but something was always missing. And as the night went on, Claire couldn't help but wonder if she would ever feel the warmth of someone's love again. The music changed, and the crowd parted, making way for a figure so striking, so commanding, that the room seemed to hold its breath. Duke William Ashford, the most desired man in the kingdom, known for his charm, his wealth, and his mysterious aura. And yet, despite his perfection, Claire couldn't help but notice the shadows in his eyes. He was a man haunted by something she couldn't quite place. Their eyes met across the room, and for a moment, everything else faded away. The laughter, the music, the whispers, all of it vanished. He was staring at her, not in a way that made her feel exposed, but in a way that made her feel seen. Claire's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly looked away, not sure what to make of the moment. But there was no escaping the magnetic pull between them. Duke William began to walk toward her, his gaze unwavering. As he approached, the crowd seemed to fade into the background. Time seemed to slow. "Miss Montgomery," he said, his voice smooth like velvet. "May I have this dance?" Claire blinked in surprise. Was this really happening? Was the Duke of Ashford really asking her to dance? She had always imagined such a moment, but never thought it would come, especially not at her age, when most men had long ago dismissed her as a faded memory of their youth. But here he was, standing before her, extending his hand, waiting for her to take it. For a moment, Claire hesitated. Was this real? Was this just another cruel joke at her expense? But then she looked into his eyes again, those piercing eyes that seemed to hold the answers to everything, and something inside her shifted. She placed her hand in his, and the moment she did, everything changed. The music played, but it was no longer just background noise. It was the rhythm of their hearts. And as they danced, Claire realized something. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was seen. She was desired. And for the first time in a long time, Claire allowed herself to believe in the possibility of love. Duke William had just changed everything. And it all started with one simple dance. As the music swirled around them, Claire and Duke William moved together on the dance floor, her heart racing with every step. She had never imagined a moment like this, her hand resting so naturally in his, the weight of his presence making her feel both alive and vulnerable. His touch was light, yet his grip was firm, a reminder that this was no fleeting moment. This was real. The crowd around them seemed to fade, the world narrowing to just the two of them. She could feel his gaze on her, sharp and intense, like he was seeing something deeper than just a woman in a ballroom. For the first time in ages, Claire felt seen. As they danced, she couldn't help but wonder what it was about her that had caught his attention. She was not young anymore, and she knew the whispers behind her back, her age, her status, the fact that she was still single at 40. But none of that seemed to matter to him. As if reading her mind, William leaned in slightly, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You've never been invisible to me." Claire's breath caught in her throat. He had noticed. He saw her. She couldn't comprehend it. Yet here he was, a man of power, charm, and influence, focused entirely on her. She had spent so many years hiding behind walls of indifference, convincing herself that she was enough without the need for someone else's love. But now, with him standing so close, everything she had built up seemed to crumble away. "You must think I'm a fool," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, unsure whether she was speaking to him or to herself. "Why would you want to waste your time with me? A woman past her prime, with no great beauty or fortune." William's eyes softened, a hint of sadness in his gaze. "Because you're not just any woman, Claire. You've lived a life filled with grace, dignity, and strength. You've carried burdens that many could not bear, and yet you still stand tall." His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, a soothing balm to the wounds she had carried for so long. She couldn't remember the last time someone had seen her for who she truly was, not just for what she lacked. "You deserve more than to be alone," he continued, his thumb gently brushing against her hand, sending a shiver down her spine. "I've spent too long hiding from my own heart, too afraid to trust and love again. But you—" He paused, as if searching for the right words. "You make me believe that there's more to life than just surviving. There's a reason for all of this, Claire. You are my reason." Her heart swelled with emotion, the weight of his confession settling on her like a sweet, heavy dream. Could it really be happening? Could she, after all these years, be worthy of this kind of love? She wasn't sure, but for the first time in a long time, Claire allowed herself to hope. They continued to dance, their steps perfectly in sync, as if they had been partners for a lifetime. She had never thought that love could find her at this age, but William Ashford, the man who could have anyone, had chosen her. And in that moment, Claire realized that her life had just begun to change, and it was all because of the man who had seen her, truly seen her, and offered her the love she had almost given up on. The music played on, the world outside them fading away, as they danced together into the future. The days that followed were filled with an undeniable tension between Claire and Duke William. Every moment they spent together felt like a dance of its own, one where neither of them quite knew the next step. As they continued to meet, their conversations grew deeper, their glances lingered a little longer, and the air between them seemed to crackle with something unspoken. Claire had never felt so alive, but she also felt the weight of the unknown pressing on her heart. Was this truly the beginning of something real, or was it just another fleeting moment in her life, destined to fade? One afternoon, as they walked through the gardens of Ashford Manor, the sunlight filtering through the trees, Claire turned to William, her heart pounding in her chest. "I never imagined I would feel this way," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "At 40, I thought my chances at love had long passed. I convinced myself that I didn't need it, that I could live my life on my own." William stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression serious, yet soft. "And now?" he asked, his voice a quiet reassurance. "Now, I'm not so sure," she replied, meeting his gaze. "But it's hard, William. It's hard to believe that something so beautiful could be real. After all these years of being overlooked, being dismissed, how can I be sure this is not just a dream?" William reached out, his hand brushing gently against her cheek, sending a shiver through her. "You don't have to believe it right away, Claire," he said, his voice full of warmth. "But know this, you are everything I've been searching for, the woman I've waited for." His words wrapped around her like a blanket, and for the first time, Claire allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a love that had been waiting for her all along. But as the days went by, the doubts remained. Claire's insecurities crept in at the edges of her mind, threatening to pull her back into the comfort of her solitude. She had always been strong, self-sufficient, but now that she had tasted love, she wasn't sure how to handle it. It wasn't just the fear of losing him, it was the fear of being vulnerable, of needing someone in a way she had never allowed herself before. One evening, as they sat in the drawing room, William reached for her hand, his touch gentle yet firm. "What are you afraid of, Claire?" he asked, his voice calm. She hesitated, unsure of how to put her fears into words. "I'm afraid of letting myself fall too deeply," she finally admitted. "Afraid that I'll get lost in this, that I'll become someone I'm not, someone who needs you more than I can handle." William's grip tightened slightly, his eyes locking onto hers. "You don't need to be afraid, Claire. I won't let you get lost, and I won't let you go." His words were a promise, one that echoed in the depths of her soul. In that moment, Claire realized that the greatest risk she could take was not in loving him, but in holding herself back from it. The walls she had built over the years were starting to crumble, and though it terrified her, she was ready to let herself fall. The love she had once thought impossible was now within reach, and for the first time in her life, Claire allowed herself to believe in its power to heal, to change, and to transform both of their lives forever. As the days turned into weeks, Claire found herself settling into a new rhythm, one that included Duke William more often than she had ever imagined. His presence in her life, once a distant possibility, was now an undeniable constant. Yet, the closer they grew, the more she questioned the strength of her own heart. She had always been independent, self-sufficient, but now, with every passing moment, her world was slowly intertwining with his. One evening, as they sat together in the library, Claire couldn't help but notice the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at her. The man who had been so stoic, so guarded, was now looking at her with a tenderness that made her feel vulnerable in the most unexpected way. "You know," William said, breaking the silence between them, "I never thought I would find someone who could make me believe in love again." His words hung in the air, and Claire's heart skipped a beat. "I thought I had closed that door forever," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you," he paused, his gaze intense. "You made me want to open it." The weight of his confession settled over Claire like a heavy cloak, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt a surge of warmth. She had been afraid for so long, afraid of giving herself completely to someone else. But here, with William, it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like the beginning of something she had always wanted, but never thought she deserved. "I never wanted to need anyone," Claire admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "But with you, I feel like I could let go of all the fears I've carried for so long. I could let myself be loved." William reached out, taking her hand in his touch sending a rush of warmth through her. "You've always been worthy of love, Claire," he said softly. "It's not about being perfect. It's about being seen. And I see you completely." His words struck a chord deep within her, and for the first time, she felt truly seen. She had spent years hiding behind her own walls, protecting herself from the disappointment of unfulfilled dreams. But with him, everything felt different. "I'm afraid, William," Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. "Afraid that one day, I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. That I'll wake up and find myself alone again." William's thumb brushed gently across her knuckles, a silent promise in his touch. "You're not alone anymore, Claire," he said firmly. "Not ever again. I'll be here, and I'll never let you go." There was no fear in his voice, no hesitation, only certainty. And in that certainty, Claire found herself believing, for the first time, that love was not just a distant dream, but something she could reach out and touch. She leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace surround her. The doubts that had plagued her for so long seemed to melt away, replaced by the quiet strength of his presence. As they sat together, the world outside seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of them in that moment. A moment where everything felt possible. And as Claire closed her eyes, resting her head against William's chest, she knew that this was only the beginning. The beginning of a love that had been waiting for her all along. The following weeks felt like a whirlwind for Claire, her life now entwined with Duke Williams in ways she never thought possible. As their bond deepened, the world around them seemed to change, too. Ashford Manor, once a place where Claire only visited in fleeting moments, now felt like home. They spent hours together, talking, laughing, and simply being. But with every passing day, the reality of their situation began to settle on Claire's shoulders. She had never allowed herself to truly depend on anyone before. The thought of needing William, of trusting him with every piece of her heart, both comforted and terrified her. It wasn't just the fear of rejection that held her back, but the fear of vulnerability. William, on the other hand, seemed to move forward without hesitation. He was steadfast, confident in the love he offered her. But Claire knew that for her to fully embrace what he was offering, she had to face her own fears. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace in the library, the crackling of the fire the only sound between them, Claire finally spoke what had been lingering in her heart. "William," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I need to ask you something." He turned to her, his eyes filled with warmth and understanding. "Anything, Claire." She hesitated, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sleeve. "What if I fail you? What if I can't be the woman you want me to be?" William's gaze never wavered, and he reached for her hand, his touch grounding her. "You don't have to be anything other than yourself. You've already given me more than I ever expected. I want you, Claire. All of you." His words, simple yet profound, settled into her soul, melting away the doubts that had clouded her heart. But still, a lingering fear gripped her. "What if I can't be the partner you deserve?" she asked quietly. "What if I can't meet your expectations?" William shook his head, his voice steady and unwavering. You're already more than enough, Claire. You always have been. You are everything I've ever wanted, and more. His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, and for the first time, Claire allowed herself to believe them. There was no more fear. There was only the certainty of his love, and the promise that together, they could face whatever came their way. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments of connection, long walks through the gardens, shared dinners by candlelight, and laughter that echoed through the halls of Ashford Manor. As the weeks passed, Claire's walls, the ones she had built to protect herself, slowly crumbled. With each word of affection, each reassuring touch, she found herself falling deeper into the love she had once thought impossible. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony, watching the sun set over the horizon, Claire turned to William, her heart full of gratitude. "I never thought I would find this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Find someone who sees me, who accepts me for who I am." William's smile was soft, his eyes filled with love as he reached out to gently lift her chin. "You've always been seen, Claire. I've always seen you, and I always will." In that moment, Claire knew that she had finally found the love she had longed for, not in perfection, but in the raw, beautiful connection they shared. And for the first time in her life, she was truly at peace, knowing that love was not something to fear, but something to embrace fully and without reservation. As the seasons changed, so did the rhythm of Claire and William's life together. Each day brought them closer, the bond they shared growing stronger with every shared glance and whispered word. There were no more doubts, no more fears of unworthiness. Claire had opened her heart to him completely, and in return, William had proven that he would never break her trust. Yet, despite the warmth they had found in each other's arms, there was still one question Claire couldn't shake, the question of the future. The life they were building together felt perfect in every way, but what would it mean for her? For them both? One crisp autumn evening, as they sat by the fire, Claire found herself looking at William, her mind racing. "William," she began, her voice hesitant, "what does this all mean for us? For me?" He turned to her, his eyes filled with understanding, as if he knew the path her thoughts had taken. "What do you mean, Claire?" he asked softly, his voice laced with tenderness. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage to voice the fear that had been growing in her heart. "I never imagined a life like this," she admitted. "I never thought I would find someone like you, someone who makes me feel like I matter. But what if I'm not enough? What if you see all of me, the parts of me that I've hidden for so long, and decide that it's too much?" William's hand gently cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin as he leaned in closer. "You don't have to fear that, Claire. You are more than enough. Everything you are is everything I've ever wanted." His words were a balm to her aching heart, but the vulnerability she felt was still overwhelming. She had spent so many years building walls, convincing herself that love wasn't for her, that she didn't deserve it. But now, with him, it felt different. "I'm not afraid of you leaving me, William," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "I'm afraid of letting myself need you, of needing this love so deeply that I don't know how to live without it." William's expression softened even more, his gaze full of empathy. "You don't have to live without it, Claire. This love isn't something I'll take away. It's something I'll give you every day for the rest of our lives." His words, so simple, yet so profound, melted away the last of Claire's fear. She had spent so long convincing herself that she didn't need anyone, that she didn't need love, but now she knew the truth. She needed him. She needed this love. And more than that, she deserved it. As she looked into William's eyes, she realized that they had both found what they had been searching for all along, each other. The warmth of his hand in hers, the safety in his embrace, the certainty that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. There was no more uncertainty, no more fear. There was only love, deep and unwavering, that would carry them both forward into the rest of their lives. "I love you, William," Claire whispered, her voice full of emotion. "I love you too, Claire," he replied, his voice thick with the weight of his own feelings. And in that moment, everything fell into place. The world outside faded, and all that remained was the two of them, bound together by love that was stronger than anything either of them had ever known. As the days turned into weeks, Claire and William's life together felt like a dream that neither of them wanted to end. The walls that had once kept Claire at a distance from the world, and from love, had crumbled away, and now, every moment spent with William felt like a new beginning. Yet, despite the peace she had found in his arms, there were moments of doubt that crept into Claire's heart. She had lived so long in fear, so long thinking that love was something she would never find, that it was hard to believe that something so beautiful could be hers forever. One quiet evening, as they sat together in the drawing room, the flicker of candlelight casting a warm glow across their faces, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. William noticed her silence, his gaze gentle as it met hers. "What's on your mind, Claire?" he asked, his voice soft, but with a hint of concern. She hesitated, unsure of how to put her thoughts into words. "I'm afraid," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm afraid of losing this. Afraid that everything we've built could be taken away in an instant." William reached for her hand, his touch grounding her, and he squeezed gently. "You're not going to lose me, Claire," he said firmly. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." His words should have been enough to calm her, but something inside her still felt uncertain. "I know, but what if one day we wake up and we're not the same people anymore?" she asked. "What if everything we've built together isn't enough?" William's expression softened, and he took a moment before responding. "We are always changing, Claire," he said, his voice steady. "But love is about growing together. As long as we choose to face each change side by side, we will always be enough for each other." His words were a balm to her worries, and Claire felt the tension in her chest ease. She had spent so much of her life wondering if she was enough, if love was something she could truly have. But now, with William, she realized that love wasn't something to be earned. It was something to be shared, built together, and nurtured. "I want to believe that," Claire whispered, her eyes meeting his. "And I do," William replied, his thumb brushing over the back of her hand in a soothing motion. "But you have to believe in it too, Claire. In us. In this." Claire nodded slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. She had spent so much time doubting, but now she knew that the love they shared was worth fighting for, worth trusting in. She leaned in and kissed him softly, a silent promise that she was ready to take this journey with him, wherever it may lead. As they pulled away, William smiled at her, his eyes full of warmth. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. "Not now, not ever." And for the first time in her life, Claire believed him. She believed in them. She believed in the love they had found, and she knew, deep down, that it was something worth holding on to. As the evening stretched on, they sat together, the quiet of the room surrounding them, and for the first time in a long time, Claire felt truly at peace. The fear that had once ruled her heart had faded, replaced by the certainty of love, love that would carry them both forward into whatever the future held. As time passed, Claire and William continued to grow closer, their connection deepening with each day that they shared together. The castle felt more like a home now, filled with laughter and the warmth of a love that had bloomed against all odds. But even in the comfort of their shared moments, Claire found herself facing the reality of her past, the doubts, the scars, and the life she had built on her own. One evening, as they walked through the gardens of Ashford Manor, the crisp autumn air brushing against their faces, Claire felt a familiar unease stirring inside her. William had been nothing but patient, loving, and understanding, but she still couldn't shake the feeling that there were parts of herself that she had yet to reveal to him. As they reached a secluded bench beneath an old oak tree, Claire stopped and turned to face him. "William," she began, her voice quieter than usual, "there's something I need to tell you." He looked at her with concern, taking a step closer. "You know you can tell me anything," he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage to finally open up about the parts of her that she had kept hidden for so long. "I've spent so many years trying to prove to myself that I didn't need anyone," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "That I didn't need love, that I could handle everything on my own. But the truth is, I've always been afraid of needing someone, of depending on someone, of giving my heart completely." William reached for her hand, his touch gentle yet firm, as if anchoring her in the present moment. "You don't need to be afraid of that, Claire," he said softly. "I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here because I want to give you everything, everything you've always deserved." His words were like a balm to her heart, but the weight of her past still lingered. I know, Claire whispered, her voice barely audible. But what if I can't let go of the fear? What if I still can't fully trust that I won't lose myself in this? William looked at her with such intensity that Claire felt as though he was seeing every part of her. The doubts, the pain, the scars she had carried for so long. You won't lose yourself, Claire, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. You're not alone in this. I'm here with you, and I will always be here. He cupped her face gently in his hands, his touch warm and grounding. You are my equal, Claire, and I will never ask you to be anything other than yourself. His words wrapped around her like a protective embrace, and for the first time in a long time, Claire felt a sense of peace wash over her. She wasn't alone. She wasn't afraid anymore. As she looked into his eyes, she realized that the love they shared wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace, something that would only make her stronger. I love you, she said, her voice full of conviction. I love you too, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. In that moment, everything that had once seemed uncertain felt clear. The walls she had built around her heart were gone, replaced by a love that was unshakable, a love that would carry them both forward into whatever the future held. And as they sat there beneath the oak tree, hand in hand, Claire knew that this was only the beginning of their story, a story that would be filled with love, growth, and the promise of forever. As the days grew shorter and the first hints of winter began to settle over Ashford Manor, Claire found herself more certain than ever of the life she was building with William. The quiet moments they shared became her solace, and the love that had once seemed so distant now enveloped her like a warm embrace. Yet, there was still one shadow that loomed over her heart, a shadow of the life she had lived before, the woman she had been when she thought love was a luxury she couldn't afford. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the frosty gardens, William spoke softly, his breath visible in the crisp air. I've been thinking about our future, he said, his voice steady, yet filled with the weight of something unspoken. Claire turned to him, her heart quickening. What do you mean? She asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of unease. William stopped walking, turning to face her with a look of deep seriousness in his eyes. I want you to know that I'm here for you. For everything. He began, his words deliberate and calm. But I also want you to know that our future is not just about love. It's about building something, together. Something real. Claire's breath caught in her throat. The words were so simple, yet they held so much meaning. She had always feared that love was a fleeting thing, that it would never last. But William's words made her realize that love wasn't just something to be felt. It was something to be nurtured, built, and protected. I know we've only just begun this journey, William continued, his hand still gently holding hers, but I want to build a life with you. A life where we both stand side by side, equal in every way. The thought of a future built on equality, on partnership, filled Claire with a sense of peace she had never known. I've always been afraid, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Afraid that I wouldn't know how to let someone in. Afraid that I would push you away, or that you would see me for who I really am and decide it's not enough. William's eyes softened, and he reached up to gently tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. You are enough, Claire, he said, his voice unwavering. You are more than enough. And I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever. Claire felt her heart swell at his words. She had spent so long convincing herself that she wasn't worthy of love, that she couldn't be part of something lasting. But here, with William, she felt like she could be the woman she was always meant to be. The woman who loved deeply, who was loved in return, and who was never afraid to take a chance on happiness. You make me believe in a future, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. A future where I don't have to be afraid anymore. William smiled softly, pulling her into a gentle embrace. You don't have to be afraid, Claire. Not with me. In that moment, the world around them seemed to fall away. It was just the two of them, standing in the garden under the pale moonlight, their hearts beating as one. The future that had once seemed so uncertain now felt like a promise that they would face it together, hand in hand. And as the cold air wrapped around them, Claire knew, deep in her heart, that she had finally found a place where she belonged. A place where love wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was the foundation of everything that would come next. The days that followed felt like a dream that Claire never wanted to wake up from. William's presence had become an unshakable constant, his love filling every corner of her life in a way that left her feeling whole. The garden at Ashford Manor, where they spent their evenings together, had become their haven, a place where the outside world could not touch them. Yet, despite the peace she had found, Claire couldn't shake the lingering doubt that had been with her for so long. Could she truly accept this love? Could she embrace the happiness she had always thought was beyond her reach? One evening, as they sat by the fire, William turned to Claire, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "You've been quiet these past few days," he said softly. "Is everything all right?" Claire looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of her thoughts. She had been holding back, unsure of how to fully let go. "I'm just," she started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just afraid, William. Afraid of what might come next." William's expression softened, and he reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "What are you afraid of?" he asked, his voice steady and calm. "Afraid that this love will fade," Claire said, the words coming out in a rush. "Afraid that one day, I'll wake up and realize it was all just a dream, that I'm not the woman you thought I was." William gently cupped her face, his touch tender. "Claire," he said, his voice filled with conviction, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You are everything I've ever wanted, and more. This love isn't just a fleeting moment. It's real, and it's ours." Claire's eyes filled with tears, the weight of his words breaking through the walls she had built around her heart. For so long, she had convinced herself that she didn't deserve love, that happiness was something that happened to other people. But with William, everything was different. "But what if I can't live up to what you need?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What if I'm not enough?" William gently pressed his forehead to hers, his breath warm against her skin. "You are more than enough, Claire," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've always been enough. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be you, and that's all I've ever wanted." The sincerity in his words, the unwavering confidence in his love, filled Claire with a sense of peace she had never known. The fear that had held her back for so long began to dissolve, replaced by a quiet trust in what they had built together. "I love you," she said softly, her heart overflowing with emotion. "I love you too," William replied, his voice full of warmth. The words felt like a promise, a vow that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. And for the first time in her life, Claire allowed herself to believe in that promise. As they sat together, the fire crackling softly beside them, Claire realized that love wasn't something she had to fear anymore. It was something to be embraced, something to be shared. And in William's arms, she knew she had found the home she had always longed for, a place where she was truly seen, truly loved, and where her heart could finally rest. The days continued to pass in a serene harmony, with Claire and William growing even closer with each passing moment. Their connection felt undeniable, like a bond that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. As winter settled over Ashford Manor, the first snow began to blanket the grounds in a layer of soft white, and the castle's walls seemed to close in, wrapping them in a cocoon of warmth and love. But, as the months went by, Claire began to notice a shift in herself. She had once feared love, convinced it was something she couldn't have, but now she couldn't imagine a life without William by her side. She had allowed herself to become vulnerable, to trust in something deeper than herself. Yet, despite the contentment that filled her life, there was still a lingering question in her heart, a question she couldn't ignore. One evening, as they sat in front of the fireplace, the crackling of the fire the only sound between them, Claire turned to William with a furrowed brow. "William, do you ever wonder about the future?" she asked, her voice quiet but filled with uncertainty. He looked at her, his brow raised, sensing the weight of her words. "What do you mean?" he asked gently, his hand reaching out to brush a lock of hair from her face. Claire hesitated before answering, her eyes dropping to the floor. "I mean, what happens after everything settles? After we've had our happy moments and shared our love? I'm not afraid of it, but I wonder what lies ahead. I wonder if we will always be this happy." William's expression softened, and he moved closer, his hand gently holding hers. "Claire," he began, his voice calm and full of reassurance, "the future may be uncertain, but I do know this. What we have is real. And no matter what happens, I will be here with you, every step of the way. We will face whatever comes together. His words, though simple, were enough to ease the doubt that had been lingering in her heart. She looked up at him, her eyes meeting his, and for the first time, she realized that the fear she once had of the future no longer held power over her. I want that, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I want to face everything with you. I want to live in a world where I can trust that us, will never change. William smiled softly, his thumb brushing over the back of her hand. It won't change, Claire. I promise you that. And in that moment, Claire knew that no matter what the future held, no matter the challenges or obstacles they would inevitably face, they would face them together. As the snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the world in a serene quiet, Claire felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had found everything she needed, everything she had longed for. And now, with William by her side, she knew that the love they shared was not just a fleeting moment, but a lifetime waiting to be lived. The fire crackled softly, casting a warm glow over them both, and Claire leaned her head against William's shoulder, feeling the weight of her fears lifted. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to fully believe in the future they would create together, knowing that no matter what, love would always guide them home. The days passed in a blur of contentment, with Claire and William weaving their lives together in a tapestry of shared moments. The mansion felt like their own world, a sanctuary built not just with bricks and stone, but with the trust and love they had cultivated. There were still moments of uncertainty, but they no longer carried the weight they once had. Instead of fearing the future, Claire found herself looking forward to it, eager to see what else she and William could build together. One evening, as they sat in the drawing room, the fire crackling softly in the hearth, Claire rested her head on William's shoulder. The peace between them was palpable, the kind of quiet comfort that only deepened over time. But as she closed her eyes, a thought crossed her mind, a thought she had pushed aside for weeks. William, she began, her voice soft. What do you see when you think about our future? William turned his head slightly, his gaze focused on her with a quiet intensity. I see everything, he said, his voice calm and steady. I see a life where we continue to grow, where we face everything together, side by side. I see laughter, moments of joy, and yes, even the challenges. But through it all, I see you. And that is enough. His words filled her heart with warmth, yet a small flicker of doubt remained. She had spent so many years questioning her worth, wondering if she was deserving of this kind of love. But what if I can't live up to it all? Claire asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if I falter along the way? William reached for her hand, his grip gentle but firm. You don't have to live up to anything. Claire, he said, his voice filled with reassurance. You are already everything I could ever ask for. You are enough, just as you are. Claire closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words settle in her heart. She had spent so much time hiding from love, afraid that it would slip through her fingers. But now, with William, she realized that love wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be lived, something to be embraced. As the fire continued to burn, casting a warm glow over them, Claire leaned into William, finding comfort in his embrace. She had come so far, from the woman who once doubted her own worth to the woman who was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she didn't have to face it alone. Together, they had built something real, something that no fear could shake. And as the world outside continued its quiet march, Claire knew that their future was waiting, full of promise and love, and she was ready to embrace it all. I'm not afraid anymore, she whispered, her voice filled with certainty. William kissed the top of her head, his arms wrapping around her in a comforting embrace. I know, he murmured softly. Neither am I. As the seasons continued to change, so did Claire and William's bond. What began as a quiet understanding had blossomed into something deep and undeniable. They no longer wondered about the future because they knew it was theirs to shape together. The nights spent by the fire, the walks in the garden, the shared moments of laughter and quiet comfort. They were building a life, brick by brick, in a world that had once seemed impossible. It was a life they both cherished. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony, gazing at the stars above, Claire turned to William, a small smile playing on her lips. Do you ever think about how far we've come? she asked softly, her eyes reflecting the light of the moon. William's gaze softened as he looked at her, his hand gently holding hers. Every day, he replied, his voice full of affection. When I look at you, I see a strength I never thought I would find. You've taught me so much about love, about trust, and about what it means to truly live. Claire's heart swelled with emotion at his words. She had never imagined that she would find a love so complete, so all-encompassing. I used to think I was content on my own, she said quietly, but I was wrong. I didn't know what real happiness was until I found you. William smiled, his thumb gently brushing across the back of her hand. I feel the same way, he said. You've changed everything for me. I never thought I'd find someone who would make me feel this way. For a moment, they sat in silence, the sound of the night surrounding them. It was the kind of silence that wasn't uncomfortable, but peaceful, filled with everything they had said without words. Claire leaned her head against William's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence and the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. They were a perfect match, two souls that had been drawn together through time, through struggles, and through the simple beauty of love. I don't know what the future holds, William, Claire whispered, her voice thick with emotion, but I know that whatever comes, we'll face it together. William kissed the top of her head, holding her close. Always, he promised softly. The promise was a quiet vow, one that would last a lifetime, a commitment to walk through every chapter of life side by side, with love as their guide. And in that moment, under the stars, Claire realized that she had found her home in his arms. A place where love wasn't just something to wish for. It was something that she had, something she would never take for granted. She had finally found her forever, and it was more beautiful than she had ever imagined.